There have been a lot of people that want to know the tea. Christina, how did you get pregnant at 40 years old with twins? Come on, spill it. Give us the details. Okay, well, during this video, I'm going to break down all the different ways that you can get pregnant. I'm sure you know of a few. Maybe you've used them before. We're going to talk about cost, time, and most importantly, your mental health during this process, okay? Because going about it as a single mother by choice, it is a process. I've got a few stories to share, in fact, some really funny ones from, my journey. And we're also going to share my baby bump. 21 and a half weeks pregnant. A lot of people want to know. A lot of people are curious. We've been doing a lot of shots from here on up. So stick around to the end of the video and I'll show you. I want to break it down, all the different ways and procedures that you can get pregnant, even a handful that I've tried along my journey. And I thought it would be cool to break it down, the cost, all right? And not only financially, but physically and mentally, from the lowest to the highest. And number one, the cheapest way you can go is have a little sex, sexual intercourse, a little bump and grind in between the sheets. Now, being a single woman by choice without a partner, that really wasn't an option for me. Now, I did have some suggestions. Not gonna lie, it did cross my mind. Could I go down to a bar, meet Dylan, bring him back to the house, and low-key try to get pregnant without him knowing? Yes, of course I could have done that. Should I have? Absolutely not, because I'm trying to have a baby, not get chlamydia. You know what I mean? I don't want it. Now, the cost of having sex, I mean, it depends. For your mental health, it could be good, it could be bad. I guess it depends on your partner. Shaving your legs is also an expense. Unless you don't do that, who does these days? You know what I mean? We're 40 years old and trying to get pregnant, not 22. But if you've been, calculating everything on your ovulation calendar and you just can't get pregnant, you can't figure it out, well, then you want to go over to your OBGYN and start asking for some fertility medication. Most cases, it is covered by insurance, depending on your insurance. So I guess the cost would be $0 to $100 for your mental health. It can drive you a little cuckoo if you've been trying for 6 to 9 months and you haven't been able to get pregnant. In fact, a lot of doctors say that if you've tried for 6 months, I think it's 3 months if you're over like 35, then you really need to start picking it up and getting a little extra assistance. So if you're single like me, or you're in a relationship that doesn't allow you to reproduce via having a little bump and grind sesh, all good. That's what we have. Artificial insemination, or I guess they call it alternative insemination. I really don't give AF because honestly, it is what it is. It's all the same damn thing. Artificial, alternative, it is what it is. Now, there's a couple different procedures and I'll show you and explain how this works. But first and foremost, you gotta find a sperm donor. In a couple weeks, I'll actually tell you who my sperm donor is. Probably not, I'll have to think about this and how it's actually gonna go down. But there are a variety of ways that you can get it. First and foremost, you can ask your best friend or, a couple that are willing to do it, because you'd be surprised the amount of people that are willing to give up their sperm. Especially if you want to go back to number one and have sex, then you got a lot of options. It's weird. But if you do that, make sure you get a lawyer involved. That's all I got to say. You also have sperm donor websites where it's almost like a dating profile where you go through, you can see baby pictures, sometimes adult photos. You learn about their profession, their education background, their family background, their health, their hobbies, all the things. It's like you're gonna date the guy, but not really. So you can always look into that as well. But there's a variety of ways, even some anonymous people, or I've heard of a guy on Craigslist that is like trying to get women pregnant and he's like charging them like $200 or something like that. And you guys smash in the back of his van and he's got like 70 kids out there. I'll have to find the article and link it in the description below. So look for it. Let's talk about sperm donor costs. Well, obviously, if you have somebody who's willing to just hand it on over and give it to you, well, that's $0. It's absolutely free. If you use a sperm donor bank, well, we're looking at more like up to $1,000 a vial. Now, if you decide to go with the friend who's going to give you the vials of sperm and all that, I wouldn't skimp on the lawyer. I would definitely look into that because things can get kind of messy, okay? And I'm sure that that person would appreciate it and your child down the road. This is a whole nother conversation for another time, but don't skimp on the lawyer fees. So now that you have your sperm, y'all have signed on the dotted line with the lawyers. Now it is time to move along and actually do the insemination. Now there are a few different ways. Obviously, doing it at home is cheaper. It's a little bit more risky because do you know what the hell you're doing? Hopefully. And I have heard of people that have gotten pregnant with home inseminations. You can actually buy a device on Amazon, which is a little syringe and a little tube, and you put it up there while you're ovulating and say a prayer, hope for the best. I actually heard of someone who used a baster. Now that sounds very old school to me, and I don't know if they just said that as a joke or if they really did use a baster. So I would just buy, the little doodad. I'll actually put a link for it in the description below if you're interested in home insemination. Now, I didn't try that. I went right for the gusto and went to a fertility doctor because I do have some medical issues. Not only being, at that time I was 37, going to be 38, starting my journey. And I also have PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. And I just wanted to make sure that all my ducks were lined up, that my blood work came back clean, and that I didn't have any other issues like endometriosis or other issues. PCOS is definitely number one on my list, and it's very difficult for women to get pregnant with it. So I went to a fertility doctor. We got some medication going. I got on metformin, started low carb eating and working out a bit, and did 6 IUIs. That stands for artificial insemination or intrauterine insemination. So the first time, didn't get pregnant. Second time, guess what? I got a positive pregnancy test, which about 8 weeks later ended in a miscarriage, which happens a lot. And honestly, yes, it was sad, but I'm also very science-based and I understand it is what it is. It happens all the time. Women have miscarriages all the time. So I'm not the first one, and it's a good sign that I'm able to get pregnant on my second IUI. That was actually positive from my doctor as well. And he said, you know what? The fact that you got pregnant, that's great. We're gonna keep going. So the third one was a bust. The fourth one was a bust. And then COVID hit. And that's when we got pushed back a lot because, obviously the doctor's appointments weren't, or the offices weren't open. Everyone was on lockdown. So I decided to give it 2 more goes, and the last one was actually a medicated IUI, which I used the medication that you use on an IVF. I produced a ton of follicles. I think there were maybe 15 or 20 follicles in there, which could have given me multiple births. And we're not just talking twins here, folks. We're talking quads and beyond, which would have been so bad. I will never forget the time that I had an IUI and the doctor called me. He was like, listen, your follicles are ready to go. You were about to release them all. We got to catch this before it happens. We got your sperm defrosting right now. Get on in here. But it was Halloween, and that was the day I was doing some sort of TV appearance or whatever. So I was dressed up in this as a Georgia peach from the movie A League of Our Own, starring the very one and only Tom Hanks. Yes, I did go in with my knee-high socks and my little dress. I didn't even take the dress off. No, they put my legs up in the air in my costume with my victory rolls, and I was ready to go. I'll never forget that. And of course, they had a good laugh at the fertility center. And there are a lot of reasons why I didn't want to go for the gusto IVF. And I think the most important one was I had a miscarriage at my second IUI. So it gave me a glimmer of hope going, it is possible. I can get pregnant. And I don't have to put my body through, the tolls and trials and tribulations. And I don't have to spend a ton of money doing it because, the artificial insemination, IUI, is much cheaper than IVF. and way less invasive, but I decided, the time is right. Time is a ticking. I had just turned 40, so at this point it had been 2 years of me going through my fertility journey, decided to go for it. So after all my medications, shots, supplements, all the things, I went in under anesthesia. They scraped out, I think it was 27 eggs. And out of the 27 eggs that they got, which is a lot, especially for somebody who's 40, because every single month you lose like a lot of eggs. So obviously you have way more when you're younger, and then as you age, your fertility goes down. So the fertility doctor took the 27 eggs, fertilized them, and every day would call me with a new number. So 27 went to 22, went to 19. And then after a few days, 5 days of growing in the lab, I had 13 thriving day 5 embryos. And I was like, what? Because honestly, he said that someone who was in my same condition, my same age and body type and PCOS only had 2. So I was very blessed to have 13. The next step is, if you choose, it is optional to have them genetically tested. That means that you can see if the embryos are healthy and if they're even worth implanting, which costs a couple thousand every time you want to implant them. So it'll also tell you if they're a boy or a girl, you can choose. I decided not to do that because it does cost an additional $5,000, and every transfer after the initial one costs a couple thousand. So I decided, not gonna have them genetically tested. Whatever happens, happens. We're just going with God on this one. So my doctor said, listen, you have untested embryos at your age. You have about a 15% chance of getting pregnant if you put 2 in. You have a 3% chance of getting pregnant with twins if you put 2 untested embryos in. I thought, having 13 embryos, I have a 3% chance of having twins, only a 15% chance of actually getting pregnant. Put 2 in today. Well, he did. And I got pregnant with twins. And that's the end of the story. I mean, there's a whole lot more, and we're going to cover that in more of the series here. So I am 21 and a half weeks pregnant, which means, for those of you who are really bad at math, I'm in the 5th month. I ain't making it to 40 weeks. They always try to deliver twins about max 37 weeks. So, oh my gosh, it's coming. I'm over halfway there. But here is my baby bump. I'm just fat and pregnant, y'all. You can't even tell. Honestly, nobody knows that I'm pregnant. Nobody knows. Yep, here we go. It's gonna get bigger though as the babies grow, and they're kicking and fluttering now, so I'm excited. All right, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week for the gender reveal, and then after that, we're gonna talk about who my sperm donor was. All right, coming up. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.